One of the things that we have said in the past is a problem with the UBI is that it is often is a political one. I mean, I think we've had multiple people on this program to talk about the UBI. I think at one point I had a little bit of a debate about it. In principle, I think it's a good idea to give people money. Or you could get around that by giving them goods like healthcare, and then you don't have to give them money. I mean, if you're going to give people $3,000 a year, guess what I would rather you give them? Healthcare. Much cheaper. Much more expensive than $3,000 a year. I think there's some value with baby bonds and whatnot. In particular, the thing I like about baby bonds is it doesn't provide the obvious cudgel to dismantle things like Social Security, things like medical insurance, things like automatic stabilizers, like food stamps and food assistance and nutrition assistance, things like TANF, things like housing vouchers. And one of the ways that the UBI has been presented in the past, and it's very hard to imagine that it wouldn't be used, even if it was passed and implemented, it wouldn't be used in the future down the road as some type of leverage point, is to dismantle these things. And to actually just, in many ways, just, it's very much about basically saying, I'm going to let the market decide, but I'm going to give you a little bit of an advantage in the market. And here is presidential candidate Andrew Yang giving up the ghost here. Now, I don't even know if Rubin notices it, although he's been reading Milton Friedman, I guess, and it's certainly Milton Friedman's idea to do this. But here it is, Dave Rubin talking to Andrew Yang about UBI.
So why not just blow apart? So I think the best libertarian argument that I've heard for UBI is that basically if you want to do UBI, it's got the right idea. Why not just blow apart the social safety net as is, because we know it's just a boondoggle of middle management nonsense.
Pause it. Saying the words, it's a boondoggle of middle management nonsense means nothing. This is absolutely 100% not true. Food stamps, not a boondoggle.
You know what does mean something, though? Blow up the social safety net.
Right. That means something. But it's not. I would like to see evidence or data that suggests it's a boondoggle.
That's what's so frustrating about the Yang people is they think they're not being ideological when they say stuff like this.
Right.
Of middle management nonsense with all the whacked out incentives that you're talking about. Why not just take all of that money, do we even know how much money is actually put into these things?
Of course.
So how much right now?
600 billion, give or take.
Give or take. All right, so why not take the 600 billion that are on programs that we know are creating as many problems probably as they're fixing, if not more, and then do it that way? Like, do you think, because it almost feels like it's a little bit of a stopgap, that you'd still have to get to that problem eventually?
Well, that's the beauty of this, the freedom dividend proposal, is that you have the 600 billion or so, and then you're saying, hey, guess what? Like, it's now a new right of citizenship, everyone gets it. And then what's going to happen is you're going to dramatically reduce the enrollment in these programs very, very quickly, because a lot of people will be like, I prefer the cash. And then this new incoming population would just opt for the dividend and then never end up on these welfare programs. So you'd end up shrinking the enrollments over time in the way you described. You just wouldn't do it all at once, because there are a lot of people in very distinct situations. And this is actually much more politically feasible and popular than going and trying to tear these programs up and from the roots up.
Yeah. Are you worried though that the
pause it? In other words, he's saying two things here. One is it gives you the political cover to go in and begin to dismantle the welfare state. And things like food stamps, food nutrition,
Disability
which is
assistance.
automatic stabilizer. It increases as more people fall into poverty if there is a recession. Without that mechanism, people are screwed, but you'll have been able to destroy it by that point because the UBI will keep them out of food stamps, and then we can just eventually make the program so small and restrictive. $600 billion. I mean, I love the idea that you can have this conversation. Convinced that it's a boondoggle, have no idea what it costs. Incidentally, our military budget this year is what? $760 billion? $770 billion, I think, going into 2020. But I love how you can just immediately say it's a boondoggle. Of course it's a boondoggle. How much is it? $600 billion? Is that a lot or is that a little?
Yeah, if you want to find some boondoggles, go to the Pentagon.
Yeah. Is there any more of this? Just a little more.
Are you worried, though, that because states have different things related to social programs, that, I mean, we sort of addressed this already, but just that different states will deal with it so differently in terms of how they're giving benefits off UBI, that it just is going to create this weird, we may have a gajillion people moving to one state and leaving another state or the rest of it, or you just think that that's...
Well, that's one reason why having uniform benefits, because right now there are block grants that go to various states and the states do different things with it, as you're suggesting. Mm-hmm. And those are the programs that would be swapped out for UBI. So the more people that opt into UBI, then the like smaller those grants would be.
Largely Medicaid is what he's talking about.
Yeah, the first thing he cites on the how are we going to pay for UBI is SSDI, and basically, and I've looked into this a little bit, but my understanding is there's about 8 to 9 million people on that get SSDI payments, and the average is over $1,000, over the $1,000 Yang dollar ones, and that's for like handicapped transportation and stuff like that.
This is Social Security disability insurance, which is very, very difficult to qualify for. And the idea that you would basically take the most vulnerable people in our society and use this as a mechanism to erode their support systems is just, this is, I mean, when we've talked about UBI in the past, that scenario is exactly what is problematic.
And so just to illustrate this for people, imagine you were getting like paying $1,200 in handicapped transportation costs a month. And all of your friends who aren't disabled, they get all their Yang bucks, $1,000 a month. But you don't get the Yang bucks because you need to keep your SSDI payment. Your friends are going to be like, hey, let's go to the beach with our Yang bucks this month. You're not going to be able to do any of that because you're going to be behind them every month because you have to make the choice between Yang bucks or these welfare programs. Like, if the Yang thing went to everybody regardless of any kind of assistance they got, then I think it would be an interesting program. But this torpedoes it.
A left UBI would be done on top of the existing welfare state.
Yes.
And there have been left cases for that kind of a UBI, like Peter Fraze wrote a good article in Jacobin called Curious Utopias, sort of explaining how a left UBI could hypothetically be some kind of non-reformist reform that would move us closer to socialism, but that's not what this is.
Right, and that's always been my fear about the UBI is not so much that you couldn't come up with a good one, is that it's too easy to come up with a bad one. Yeah. And in addition to VAT taxes being somewhat regressive, is my understanding, the idea that you're going to take someone and say, choose, I guess at the beginning of the year, right? Like, oh, it turns out you chose wrong. Sorry, dude.
Guess what that adds to? Administrative overhead.
Right, exactly, of course. And then the idea that, like, what happens? Like, how long do you choose? When do you choose? How long is the period of time that you opt in for? And how do you predict when you're on Social Security disability how long you're going to be on for? I mean, this is...
I mean, I get the appeal, right? Like $1,000 a month would change my circumstances substantially, but that's not the limits of my political imagination.
Oh, for people that run Patreon podcasts, it'd be great to have that many people with that much money to spend. But you can't do this and shaft the most vulnerable people like that. And there's no reason to, other than ideological reasons, that you're running some sort of I want to make government smaller campaign, but don't want to be honest about it.
Let's play this clip.